Let's face it, there are countless research studies, books, articles, YouTube videos, and even podcasts out there that are designed to help those of you whose job, role, or responsibility it is to recruit and retain talent. But we wanted to do things a bit differently and create a podcast series that went beyond the same topics and strategies and approaches that everyone's talked about already. Introducing Finders Keepers, a podcast series for those of you out there who are interested in topics that go a bit deeper and focus on the nuances and subtleties of finding or recruiting the best talent for your organization, as well as keeping or retaining the people who are already working at your company who you don't want to lose. So while everyone else is talking about skills that are going to become obsolete in the future, we'll be focused on identifying skills that will be most relevant in the future and how you can find the talent, including the talent already working at your organization that already possess those skills. And while everyone else is talking about ways to find talent with the right background and experience for your organization, we'll talk about why it makes more sense to recruit for skills rather than experience. Basically, it's a show that will focus on topics that don't get nearly enough attention, but are just as important as those broader recruiting and retention ones that you always hear about. And the best part is, the show is brought to you by Korn Ferry and will feature thought leaders from the company who understand better than anyone the topics and areas you need to be focused on now and in the future. So subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and let's dive deeper into finding and keeping talent. Hey everyone, welcome to PepsiCo's Flipping the Fair, the Career Fair Reinvented podcast. I'm your host, John Palumbo. So, you're all familiar with the traditional career fair, and you know all the reasons why they're valuable. I mean, as college students, they give you the opportunity to explore career opportunities, meet prospective employers, practice professional behavior. You could even make some mistakes and quickly recover. So, for example, writing a resume and small talk with employers and preparing for interviews. These are all new skills for a lot of you. And if you make a mistake at a career fair, at least you could start fresh at the next recruiting table. Now, on the other hand, career fairs are also extremely valuable to companies and employers like us here at PepsiCo, since they give us access to lots of smart, hungry potential candidates that might be the right fit for our company. But the traditional career fair, it has some downsides as well. You know, some people feel like they're not the most genuine interactions, since company recruiters act all excited about whatever students say and they position their company as a perfect fit, while students, on the other hand, act like the company is their lifelong dream. They could also be overwhelming and exhausting. I mean, students get this giant list of companies and have to decide which ones they want to talk to. And if they haven't done their research, they can end up feeling really unprepared. Plus, having decent conversations with a handful of companies, that could easily take a couple hours of your time. I mean, just saying all that is exhausting, never mind doing it. So like anything, there are good and bad sides to the traditional career fair, but one thing's definitely for sure: it hasn't evolved very much over the last however many years, and it could use a makeover to improve the overall candidate experience. And that's why PepsiCo decided to flip the career fair and try something new. We're flipping our career fair table, so to speak, and turning it into a podcast. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because, first off, a podcast is convenient, which means you can listen to our spiel whenever you want, wherever you want. You no longer have to get all dressed up and be somewhere from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The podcast also takes the pressure off. You can listen, and I mean really listen to our story and decide if you like what you hear. You don't have to half listen like you might do at a traditional career fair, where you might be more worried or concerned or preoccupied with what you should say. You could actually take in all the information, maybe do a little research, get the questions that you have for us organized, and then respond to us. There's really no pressure. And lastly, a podcast actually will give you the opportunity to hear from passionate PepsiCo associates who were recently in your shoes, and then also senior executives who might not be able to make it to your campus for your career fair. So basically, a podcast turns the career fair into what it should be, an opportunity for you to learn about PepsiCo and decide if we're a good fit for you. So sit back, grab a Mountain Dew or a bubbly or a bag of Fritos, all our products, by the way, and tune into our flipped podcast version of the career fair, which is actually going to kick off with a discussion with Laura Maxwell, who is the Senior Vice President of Supply Chain Optimization at Frito-Lay North America, who's going to tell us things about working at PepsiCo that you would never in a million years get to learn at a traditional career fair. The same way many of us can immediately rattle off our favorite inspirational quote or our favorite line from a movie, if you ask any successful leader to share their core leadership principle that propelled them to success, they'll confidently, without hesitation, tell you their guiding philosophy. And these principles are not only personal to these leaders, but also the ones they passionately impart to others, helping them advance more quickly in their roles and careers. Now, understanding the power of these insights, Harman University created the Sound Leadership Podcast, an internal 8-episode podcast series that'll be released exclusively to Harman employees. Each episode will feature a visionary Harman leader who will delve into their personal leadership principle, offering you a roadmap to adopt and integrate these principles into your own leadership journey. The series will be available on the Workday system with notifications sent out via Outlook each time a new episode is released. So don't miss Sound Leadership, your gateway to inspiring stories and actionable advice designed to elevate your leadership journey within Harman. Pretty amazing things happen when diverse perspectives come together. And when I say diverse perspectives, I mean people from different areas and fields and disciplines and backgrounds and experiences and geographies and cultures, and yes, of course, different genders and races, and if we're talking internally at companies, different departments. And the reason amazing things happen is because they learn about approaches and tools and strategies and even technologies that they aren't familiar with because they're talking to people they wouldn't typically access or collaborate with, and they end up connecting the dots back to problems that they're trying to solve or objectives that they're trying to meet. And they end up with the biggest ideas and the most innovative products and the most unique solutions. It's a dynamic in the business community that's become known as cognitive diversity or diversity of thought or thought diversity. But what's really interesting about thought diversity is if you track it back to its origin, you have to go all the way back to the Ottoman Empire when coffee houses were first introduced, because that's the first time in history when people from all different classes were able to gather in the same place and exchange ideas and philosophies, and incredible movements resulted from those interactions. And of course, the leaders at the time, they didn't love that this was happening, but it's arguably when and where thought diversity began. And then coffee houses began popping up in Europe, especially in London in the 17th century. And again, people from different classes and disciplines were coming together for the first time. And some believe this is what helped inspire the Age of Enlightenment. And this dynamic that was happening in coffee houses became known as cafe culture. And yes, this cafe culture dynamic where diverse perspectives come together and interact and share ideas and viewpoints, it's still happening today in coffee houses, or as we like to call them, coffee shops. And if you think about it, all the business community has done is rebrand cafe culture as thought diversity. It's exactly the same thing. So if there was ever going to be a podcast designed to help companies understand and foster thought diversity, it would make all the sense in the world for one of the world's most iconic coffee companies, Keurig, to be behind it, since thought diversity's origin can be tracked back to those early coffee houses and cafe culture. So we created Keurig's Cafe Culture Podcast, a podcast series that will help companies and leaders foster thought diversity or cafe culture within their organizations. And this series is going to feature conversations with thought leaders like a historian who will take us all the way back to the Ottoman Empire, where thought diversity began in those first coffee houses, with researchers who will walk us through undeniable survey results that validate the importance and need to bring thought diversity into the workplace. We'll talk to corporate leaders from companies like Panasonic to the founder of a popular co-working organization who will discuss results that they've experienced by fostering thought diversity among their employees and their members, and even the ways that they do it, including the ways they design areas like the break room to encourage spontaneous collisions among employees. We'll talk to academics like a Harvard Business School professor who will discuss how companies need to get comfortable embracing debates and disagreements, which are essential elements of thought diversity and actually a positive thing, not a negative thing like many of us believe. And all along the way, we're going to hear amazing stories and examples of thought diversity, like how Southwest Airlines worked with a myrmecologist who analyzed the marching behavior of ants to help them reinvent the boarding process, or how the oral care team at a top CPG company tapped into their counterparts on the fabric care team to help them develop a popular teeth whitening product. And in the end, our goal or mission will be for the Cafe Culture Podcast to become the go-to resource for companies and leaders who want and need to bring thought diversity, or as we call it, cafe culture, to their organizations. So subscribe now on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.